In the heart of the cosmos lies the ultimate void, a vast expanse of absolute, where time and space seem to lose all meaning.
The classical image of the Hindu god Vishnu is widely recognized as a religious icon, but read through the lens of theology and physics, it acts as a highly codified representation of absolute reality and cosmic equilibrium. Within the major Hindu tradition of Vaishnavism, Vishnu occupies the highest possible structural tier. He is classified as Saguna Brahman, the supreme being possessing a definite form, divine attributes, and infinite qualities. To understand how his role functions, we must look at the systemic framework of the Hindu Trimurti. Here, the absolute forces of the universe are divided into three distinct operational domains. Brahma creates the universe, Shiva destroys it, and Vishnu acts as the central axis between them. His specific domain is preservation. He embodies sattva, the fundamental universal quality associated with goodness, light, and cohesion. Because the universe naturally degrades over time, his primary responsibility requires active management. Vishnu must constantly calculate and apply the exact amount of force required to maintain equilibrium against the creeping pressures of entropy and chaos. These preservation mechanics are expressed through the specific physical attributes assigned to the deity. This analytical schematic details the classical depiction of Vishnu as Narayana. His four arms signal absolute operational mastery over both the physical universe and the spiritual realm. He wields four specific tools to manage reality. The first is Panchajanya, the conch shell. Its spiral, logarithmic structure represents the interconnected, continuously cycling nature of all existence. When cosmic equilibrium is entirely overwhelmed by evil, he deploys the Sudarshana chakra, a war discus. This represents the capacity to restore order through precise, devastating martial force. The remaining tools balance power with purity. Kamadaki, the mace, signifies the ultimate weight of divine authority and the palam of knowledge. Padma, the lotus flower, represents transcendent purity emerging from the mud of existence. Expanding outward to the macro environment, we find Vishnu resting upon the massive coils of a multi-headed serpent. This is Shesha, the primordial snake who embodies the endless, unyielding flow of time upon the cosmic ocean. Accompanying him is his consort, Lakshmi. In Vaishnava theology, she operates as his Shakti, the active, complementary, creative energy required to actually execute his preservation duties across the universe. Every element of this classical image has a specific utility. It serves as a comprehensive diagram illustrating the environment, the power source, and the exact tools required to sustain existence. This animated cycle maps the yugas, the four cyclical ages of time that govern the material universe. Far removed from the static perfection of his heavenly abode, Vaikuntha, the physical world is bound by this spinning wheel. Built into the mathematics of this cycle is the concept of adharma. As time progresses through the four ages, righteousness and cosmic order naturally degrade, giving way to entropy and chaos. When the degradation accelerates beyond natural limits, the system triggers an avatar. The word translates precisely to descent. It marks the exact moment the Supreme Being crosses the boundary from absolute reality into the material timeline. The foundational text, the Bhagavad Gita, defines the trigger for this intercession. Whenever chaos threatens to permanently break the mathematical cycle of the universe, Vishnu manifests. The manifestation arrives to actively repair specific structural damage caused to the universe during a given era. The avatar system functions as the ultimate theological failsafe. It is an active, self-correcting mechanism designed for a universe that is structurally prone to decay. This chronological grid maps the Dashavatara, the 10 primary, specialized forms Vishnu assumes to execute these universal recalibrations. The protocol is highly adaptable. Because no two cosmic crises are identical, the Supreme Being utilizes entirely different physical forms and operational methodologies to restore equilibrium. Take the avatar of Rama. During his era, the structural damage to society required a demonstration of absolute, rigid adherence to duty, societal law, and familial obligation. Rama's methodology was strict behavioral perfection. Compare that to the avatar of Krishna. Arriving in a deeply compromised, morally gray era, Krishna's approach required complex political maneuvering, the exploitation of technicalities in warfare, and the dispensing of vast cosmic wisdom to restore order. Krishna's intervention was so comprehensive that Vaishnava theology elevates him uniquely. Many texts view Krishna as the transcendental, primeval source of all existence, the absolute reality from which even Vishnu himself emanates. The protocol also extends far beyond human affairs. Prehistoric crises required non-human interventions, like Matsya the fish, who guided the progenitors of life through a cataclysmic flood. The grid even plots interventions that have not yet occurred. The 10th avatar, Kalki, is mathematically prophesied to manifest only when the current age reaches total entropy, acting as the catalyst to reset the cycle. The dash of the Tara proves that preservation requires dynamic adaptation. To counter the evolving complexities of cosmic chaos, the Supreme Being must constantly change tactics. Historical analysis reveals a discrepancy between Vishnu's modern standing and his role in early Hindu scriptures. The Supreme Being who governs the contemporary cosmos was barely acknowledged by the society that wrote the foundational texts. This grid represents the Rig Veda, composed around 1500 BCE. Out of its 1,028 hymns, only 5 of them are dedicated to Vishnu. During the early Vedic period, his profile was limited. He was recognized as a non-elite solar deity, primarily associated with light, taking a back seat to gods of fire and storms. His defining act in these ancient texts was the Trivikrama, the myth of the 3 strides. Starting as a small being, he takes 3 steps that measure out the earth, the ether, and the heavens, signaling his future cosmic scale. Centuries later, that minor solar deity became integrated into the dense philosophical inquiries of the Upanishads, identified directly with Brahman, the supreme absolute reality. This lack of early textual dominance is the starting point for one of the most expansive and successful theological evolutions in human history. This timeline charts a process known as Sanskritization. Over centuries, the minor Vedic deity gradually absorbed powerful, independent regional gods. By the final centuries BCE, Vishnu had fused with the massive Bhagavata cult surrounding Vasudeva Krishna and the Pancharatra deity Narayana. Moving into South India, the framework expanded again, assimilating the ancient Tamil pastoral deity Mayan or Paramal. The architectural scale of modern South Indian temples reflects the sheer gravity of this synthesis. The encyclopedic texts known as the Puranas, specifically the Bhagavata Purana, intellectually cemented this supremacy. They formally associated this newly synthesized, multifaceted Vishnu with the absolute, non-dual reality of the universe. His cultural permeability allowed him to bypass the borders of mainstream Hinduism entirely. In Theravada Buddhism, Vishnu was integrated and remains venerated today as the custodian deity of Sri Lanka. In Mahayana Buddhism, he was mapped as an emanation of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, and his mythology was closely studied and integrated by the writers of early 6 scriptures. In roughly 2 millennia, a minor solar deity with 5 hymns to his name transformed into an omnivorous theological framework capable of uniting the religious landscape of the Indian subcontinent. By absorbing and protecting diverse, localized spiritual traditions into a single cohesive system, his very history mimics his divine function. The evolution of Vishnu is itself a continuous act of preservation. His weapons define his function, his avatars provide his resilience. But it is his vast, assimilating historical evolution that secures his position as the ultimate operator of cosmos. The Hindu conception of the universe is inherently unstable. It exists in an endless, violent loop of creation and destruction, constantly threatening to tear itself apart and dissolve back into chaos. To manage this turbulent cycle, Hindu theology relies on a framework known as the Trimurti. On one side, you have Brahma, the creator. On the other, Shiva, the destroyer. Caught right in the middle is Vishnu. His specific job is preservation, the active maintenance of dharma, or cosmic order, against the ever-present threat of entropy. While creation is a singular event and destruction an inevitable conclusion, preservation is a grueling, continuous effort. It requires constant intervention to keep the delicate machinery of existence running. Given that immense responsibility, you might expect him to dominate the earliest Hindu scriptures. But if we look back at the ancient texts, Vishnu is barely there. Look at this breakdown of the Rig Veda. Out of the 1,028 hymns in this foundational text, Vishnu is the primary subject of exactly 5. At this stage in history, he operates mostly in the background as a minor solar deity. His rise to supreme cosmic protector relied on a specific theological mechanism, the avatar. When unrighteousness peaks on Earth, the preserver takes a physical incarnation to step directly into the cosmic fray. Over centuries, this concept allowed his followers to systematically absorb popular regional deities into his own mythology. The 10 primary descents, the Dashavatara, serve as a historical roadmap, tracking his evolution from an obscure sun god to the absolute center of the pantheon. Before any of those descents take place, the mythology establishes a visual baseline. Vishnu rests in a deep slumber on the coils of the giant serpent Shasha, floating on the primeval ocean of milk. When crises erupt, he wakes and takes form. His earliest incarnations are entirely non-human: a fish named Matsya, a tortoise, a giant boar, and a fierce man-lion, each intervening to save early creation from catastrophic threats. Then comes Vamana, the dwarf avatar. This specific myth acts as a bridge, linking his growing supremacy straight back to his ancient background role in the Vedas. The story describes the 3 strides of Vishnu, where he suddenly expands in size to reclaim the heavens and the earth. This act of monumental reach cements his identity as the active protector of the mortal and immortal realms. We see how he protects through his tools. His upper hands hold a conch shell, symbolizing cyclical existence, and a heavy mace for authority. His lower hands balance the lotus flower of purity with the chakra, a lethal discus deployed when diplomacy fails. These weapons map out an entire theology. Preservation isn't passive. It's an active balance between spiritual enlightenment and the aggressive enforcement of cosmic law. As the scriptures evolved from the ancient Vedas to the later Puranas, Vishnu's avatars shifted from cosmic beasts to complex human heroes, like the warrior Parashurama, the righteous king Rama, and the beloved Krishna. Krishna represents a transformative instance of religious syncretism. By absorbing what was likely an intensely popular, independent local deity into the Dashavatara, the broader Vishnu framework inherited millions of devoted followers overnight. This inclusion fueled the Bhakti movement across India. Worship shifted away from distant, rigid rituals and became a profoundly personal, emotional connection between the devotee and their god. The avatar system was so flexible that it eventually expanded to include the Buddha as well. Instead of rejecting a competing philosophical system, Hinduism wrapped its arms around it, pulling the Buddha into its own protective orbit. The cycle will ultimately close with Kalki, the 10th and final avatar. He is the apocalyptic warrior, prophesied to arrive when the world descends into total darkness, wiping the slate clean so the cycle can begin again. By incorporating these popular human heroes, Vaishnava theology achieved a total synthesis. The Bhagavata Purana argues that Vishnu is the absolute truth, the same essence as the individual self found in every living being. This philosophical link defines him as Brahman, the singular, unchanging reality that underpins the entire universe. That massive expansion makes sense when you look at the roots of his name. In Sanskrit, Vishnu literally translates to the all-pervasive, or the one who enters everywhere. That definition describes his actual historical footprint. Because his theology was designed to adapt and incorporate new ideas, it easily crossed oceans and religious boundaries. In Sri Lanka, he was heavily integrated into Theravada Buddhism. Rather than being viewed as a competing Hindu god, he was recast as the custodian deity and divine protector of the Buddhist faith itself. Further east in Indonesia, his stories became foundational to Javanese mythology. Here, he operates as Sangyang Batara Vishnu, a supreme arbiter of justice whose incarnations purge greed and evil from the earth. The mechanism of the Avatar allowed Vishnu's theology to evolve alongside human history. By continually mutating and absorbing local traditions, he maintained a permanent presence across the continent, fulfilling the literal meaning of his name, the all-pervasive. That massive expansion makes sense when you look at the roots of his name. In Sanskrit, Vishnu literally translates to the all-pervasive, or the one who enters everywhere. That definition describes his actual historical footprint. Because his theology was designed to adapt and incorporate new ideas, it easily crossed oceans and religious boundaries. In Sri Lanka, he was heavily integrated into Theravada Buddhism. Rather than being viewed as a competing Hindi god, he was recast as the custodian deity and divine protector of the Buddhist faith itself. Further east in Indonesia, his stories became foundational to Javanese mythology. Here he operates as Sangyang Batara Vishnu, a supreme arbiter of justice whose incarnations purge greed and evil from the earth. The mechanism of the Avatar allowed Vishnu's theology to evolve alongside human history. By continually mutating and absorbing local traditions, he maintained a permanent presence across the continent, fulfilling the literal meaning